Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast of uncommon conversations about love with fascinating people. I'm your host, Francesca Hoagie. Today, I talk to Amari Ice, aka the Prince of Hearts. He's on a mission to empower gay men to have the lasting love they desire and deserve. According to the Matchmaking Institute, he's the first Black gay relationship coach in the entire love industry who's also a certified matchmaker. Amari's coaching philosophy is founded on his 12-step relationship process, which he outlines in his international bestseller, Lasting Love at Last, The Gay Guide to Attracting the Relationship of Your Dreams. Through his book, live workshops, and coaching programs, Amari provides gay men with the proven method to initiate and navigate romantic interactions. I can't tell you how hyped up I was after my interview with Amari. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation. He's so awesome. He utilizes his expertise in personality, psychology, communication, and interpersonal relationships, and he has helped over 500 men achieve emotionally intelligent results in love and life. Emotionally intelligent is a great way to describe Amari. He is gifted and he's my new friend. So I'm all hyped up to share with you my conversation with Amari Ice. Amari Ice, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am great, Franny. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to talk to you. I don't know how our paths haven't crossed before now.
Right.
I don't know how, and I mean, as soon as, shout out to Michelle Jacoby, who was like, you don't know Amari Ice, you have to know him, he's so amazing. Oh my God, well, yeah, and I immediately went and looked up your social media and everything, and I was like, yes, how do I not know him? He is incredible.
Thank you. Sometimes that timing just works when it needs to, so it's the perfect time.
Perfect timing. So you are the Prince of Hearts. And you are a matchmaker and a relationship coach. What has been your journey to where you are today and this incredible platform and business that you created?
Oh, wow. That is a question for story time. As a kid, if you would have asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't really have the words for relationship coach or matchmaker, but I always had the nature. So I always connected friends. A couple of my friends ended up getting married that I introduced, or when I'd have parties as a kid even, I remember being very particular about who to invite so that everybody had a good time and who to sit next to each other, all of that. I've just always kind of been a pattern recognizer, if that makes any sense. So I really think of matchmaking as seeing the patterns in people's personalities and then seeing other patterns that would fit and gel with that really, really well, like a puzzle. So always that had the nature, didn't have the language. And then in college, I had a funny journey through college. So I started off as a dance major and then switched to psychology. And in psychology, I thought I wanted to be a therapist, but while taking classes, I recognized that I really wanted to help people get results that were much faster, right, than therapy can often provide. So, you can have a therapy client for 20 years.
Yes,
and the way my attention span is set up, I was like, I need to see the fruits of my labor a lot sooner than that. And that's when I learned about coaching. So my entire life, people would always come to me for advice about everything. I'm the firstborn, the oldest of 7, and even my grandmother or my mom, my aunts and uncles, people always would come to me to kind of process things. I've just always been that person. So therapy or coaching was a perfect fit for me, and ended up getting a job before I graduated. So my junior year in college, I was president of Howard's LGBT organization, and we partnered with an organization that did LGBT empowerment, sexual health education, STD and HIV testing, things like that, and went on a retreat with them. And the only way you could go back was if you invited new people to come. And I had so much fun. It was the best experience I ever had. So, of course, I got a few friends to tag along. And before the year was out, I'd ended up recruiting 50 new people to go on their retreat. And they literally offered me a job.
I would have offered you a job, too.
Yeah. Looking back, I'm okay, I can totally see why this was a thing. Yeah, I'd hire me, too, at this point. So So they gave me a job, and I did that, worked in LGBT empowerment for about a decade. And coaching was a part of my job, actually. And then I decided to go to grad school. I got an MBA. Thought I was gonna like scale the ranks in the organization that I was working for, so becoming an executive or something. But everything just kind of aligned perfectly, and I recognized like I have all of these really, really awesome ideas, the business know-how, and the things that I really want to do aren't necessarily in alignment with the goals of the organization. So why don't I just do this on my own? And so that led me to starting my own company. And the precursor for that, actually, before I even like left, or before I got the idea to leave, I wanted to create or find some sort of resource to give to clients when they come to me around relationship challenges. And I really like giving people books, because if you come for a session, a coaching session, you probably won't remember everything that we talked about. So books are really useful for that. I tried to find books on LGBT relationships, especially written by a Black gay author, but I couldn't find any. And so with all the experience and expertise that I had, I decided I was just going to put together a free resource to give away to people who came to me, and ended up seeing a program that would help you get the manuscript written in like 9 weeks. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And unbeknownst to me, that program was affiliated with a publishing company. And when I finished, they also offered me a publishing deal. And then next thing I know, everything took on a life of its own. And now it's a best-selling book, and it's in Barnes & Noble and all the things. And then I decided to leave my job and start my own company. So it was that kind of like universal alignment. Everything just fell into place on its own. Then I found out I was the first Black gay relationship coach who's also a certified matchmaker in the entire love industry. So I'm like pioneering all the things. Meanwhile, I'm just living my life. Right. Like I didn't think of it. I didn't plan to do this. I'm just being myself, and it's just the way things have developed. So it's a really, really interesting journey. I'm still riding the waves and enjoying every single day. I, just I'm just open to the flow, and I'm loving it.
Amazing. Wait, so how long has it been now since you started your own company, since you wrote the book?
It's been about 2.5 years now. Okay. So the manuscript, I finished that in like April of 2017. The book was published in ebook form in June of 2017. And then I started full-time as a CEO. I left my job at the end of June in 2017.
Okay. Congratulations, and you clearly made the right decision. I just love how you can look back at your life and see like all of these things. Like I really related to what you were saying about, growing up, and you had this natural ability. You had this natural skill set of connecting people and being that person. But of course, you didn't have the language for that. I certainly didn't either. I really relate to that because I was always that person too. And my friend group and everything from the time I was in elementary school. But also that not knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was never a kid who was like, I want to be a blank when I grow up. I was always like, oh no, no idea. I never knew. Actually caused me a lot of like distress for years because I was like, why don't I know? I think I'm supposed to know. And then actually when I found out about matchmaking being a real thing, which happened because I heard about Paul Brunson, who I know is your friend as well. Somebody told me about Paul, and they were like, yeah, there's this Black male matchmaker I follow on Twitter. And I was like, wait, what? Who? What? What's his name? I want to follow him. And that was a life-changing connection because then I once I started following Paul, I was like, oh my God, he's so smart. He's so amazing. This is his job. Like, I can relate to this man. That was the start of my love career, was finding Paul. But it was kind of like you, like looking back, it's like, oh yeah, this was meant to be. Like, I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I've been obsessed with love and relationships, and not just mine, but other people's, which, as you know, that's different because everybody cares about themselves and their own relationships, but not everybody is interested in other people's relationships, right? And connecting other people. So sounds like you had that natural talent and interest, and so did I, which is, why we get to do what we do now, which is pretty incredible.
It's really fascinating how we'll have like gifts and talents and we don't necessarily recognize them within ourselves. And it's often either someone else pointing it out to us or going through an experience that really reveals it to us that we recognize how valuable that talent is. And it's really cool when you really step into that and live from that purpose, because I believe all of us already know what we're meant to do. And when I say know, I mean like our bodies know, right? Like the deeper part of us knows what that is. And if we just follow those instincts, follow that internal guidance, we always always, always, always end up going down the right path.
Yes. Absolutely. I believe it. If we can just tune into it, because that's the problem. Most people can't tune into it. And it's harder and harder with our distracted culture and everything. I'm like, everybody just needs to take some time to be quiet and go within yourself to get some answers. So speaking of getting some answers, you are a resource for so many people asking. Well, I don't even think your audience is not only limited to gay people.
Right.
You have everybody's coming to you because you're just that dope, and they want to know they want to hear what you have to say. Who is the typical person who is coming to you, and what are they struggling with?
In general, my focus is on gay men, but like you said, everybody really reaches out. If I can be like 1,000% transparent, my goal has always been to help anybody who can use the help that I can provide, right? But I recognize when you run a company, when you run a business, you really have to be specific, because the more, and this is counterintuitive, but the more specific you are about who you serve, the more universal your message becomes. Whereas if you say, hey, this is for any and everybody, nobody shows up. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And since the majority of my experience was with working with the LGBT community, that's why that was my focus. But the average person who shows up has been in a relationship before, but maybe it hasn't lasted longer than 2 years. Like about 80% of the people who come to me haven't had a relationship that's lasted longer than 2 years. Okay. And on average, that relationship, even if it was that long or longer, was years and years ago. So on average, people are like dating. Maybe I see somebody for a couple, 2, 3, 6 months or so, or less than a year, and it just isn't going anywhere. And I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. I have all my shit together. I'm educated. I have a great job or an awesome career. Like, I'm financially stable. I'm well-rounded. People like me, and all my friends are like, you're so great. Why are you single? Like, that's the person who usually comes to me, because they have the same question.
That's the person who usually comes to me too.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
So the thing that I always say to people is our culture really kind of conditions us to believe that love is supposed to be this magical experience that randomly shows up if it's in the cards for you, right? If it's in the stars, if you're lucky. In reality, love is not a fairy tale. It's more like a video game. And the number one reason anybody is single or will soon be single again is because they're trying to have a level 25 relationship with level 3 skills.
Damn.
So,
yes.
Yeah, like that's what it boils down to. Think about all the people who are single that you've probably met or that you know. And when I say you, I mean anybody who's listening to this. Think about all the people who are single and they think that there's something wrong with them. Like, there has to be something wrong with me, right? Like, why doesn't anybody want to commit to me? Or why doesn't anybody want to stay with me? Or why can't I find love? Like, there has to be something wrong with me. Oh my God,
that was me for years.
Yeah, but if you really analyze what's going on, it has nothing to do with your worth or your value as a person. It's really like, if we think of flying a plane, for example, if you try to fly a plane and you can't get it off the ground, or you get it off the ground and the plane keeps crashing, provided you survive the crash, right? You don't say, oh my God, there must be something wrong with me because I can't fly a plane. No, you say, clearly I didn't learn how to fly a plane effectively, so I'm going to go back to flight school, right? Like, I'm going to go and learn the skills that I need. The same is true with relationships. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have to up-level your love life by investing in your relationship skills the same way you invest in your professional skills. Otherwise, your career is going to be much better than your relationship.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't, I just want to like bottle everything you just said. I'm really glad that you said it on my podcast because you'll have it forever. We are a kindred spirits. That is exactly, I mean, you just articulated that so perfectly. I think maybe sometimes I don't articulate it that well, but that's exactly how I feel. It's like our whole cultural conditioning around romance and relationships is so fucking ridiculous and so counterproductive. And it's like you have mostly, you know, gay men coming to you, and I have mostly straight women coming to me, but everything you described about your clients, that's my clients. It's the same. It's exactly the same. And part of what it's like, even though they're so smart, they're so successful, they're so progressive in so many ways, when it comes to their approach to romance, they're so stuck in a fantasy that they learned when they were 6. It's like, no, love is not just a thing that just happens and you're lucky or you're not lucky. Like, you actually, it's something that you can make happen for yourself. People aren't conditioned to think that way, and they are conditioned to think, like you said, there's something wrong with me. And I can totally relate to that feeling, because that's how I felt for years, stuck in that place. It is all about the skills. So I love it. I love it. So,
yeah, it's like the difference between choosing to be the victim, which is what, there's something wrong with me, or there's something that is wrong with them, right? Because they keep treating me wrong. There aren't enough good people where I live. There's not enough.
There needs to be blame. Like, exactly. You gotta blame somebody.
Yeah, and so you can either choose to be the victim, which is what all of those different thoughts really center around, or you can choose to be the hero of your own story. And when we think about the difference between the victim who has to be saved and the hero, is everybody still has problems. Like, the hero is never without issues or without challenges. On the contrary, the difference between a victim and a hero is that the hero decides to get help, usually from a guide who can help them improve their skills and their confidence, and then they go out and do the thing that they've been scared to do or unable to do all along. The key difference is seeking out assistance from someone who can guide you in the right direction.
Right. And not just your friends who are telling you to do the same dysfunctional shit that they're doing.
Your friends are not relationship experts. Oh my God. Like, it's like saying, I'm going to go to my friend to see whether or not I need surgery on this arm. Like, no, your friend's not an expert on this. And even though our family and our friends really mean well when they give us advice, here's the thing. It's like taking advice on how to get wealthy from someone who's poor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I use that loosely, because there's also the calendar example of someone who's been like in human resources for 20 years and they can tell you how to write a great resume, how to get and keep a job, and now they're without a job. It's not totally the perfect analogy, but the point is,
you don't have to be perfect in order to help other people.
Exactly. Exactly. What really determines whether or not someone can give you valuable insight is if they have enough experience to show you that where you are is actually going to be improved based on the information or ideas that they give you. So giving you counsel, helping you think better, is different than giving you advice, which is telling you what they think you should do, right? So you want to go to people who can help you think through things rather than people who will tell you what to do, especially when those people aren't successful at what they're telling you to do.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that I totally preach as well, which is like, advice is optional, you know?
Yes.
Advice is like, okay, this is my opinion as to what you should do. And you're like, okay, you could take it or you can leave it. It's different than coaching. It's different than counseling. It's different than helping people to develop the tools and the resources to make their own decisions and to be their own counselors and, you know, have that be in alignment with what's really, you know, in their hearts. One question that I have about this is, you know, obviously there is the similarity, I think, between all people. I don't care what your sexual orientation, your gender, your ethnicity, all of these things, there are universal struggles when it comes to finding love. But what do you see as some of the things that are particular to the gay male community population that you primarily serve? What are some of the special challenges that you see? Okay,
so I've determined that there are really like 4 major love blocks that anybody faces. And then I'll explain these and then kind of give the specifics around the gay relationships, because I think it'll make more sense from this perspective. So the 4 love blocks. First, you have baggage blocks. And this is anything that keeps you emotionally tied to the past. And it can be negative baggage, which is what we normally think of. So like you went through a bad breakup or you had some experience of trauma or something like that. And it keeps you guarded. It keeps you from letting new people in. But then there's also positive baggage, which could be you did something to mess up a relationship with someone who was really great. So it wasn't that they did anything wrong, and now you hold that person on a pedestal, like the one that got away. Or it could be that you were in a relationship and your partner passed away. So there wasn't anything wrong with the relationship in progress, but you know, the person isn't alive anymore. And the same thing happens where you put them on a pedestal. And anytime our emotions are charged, whether it's positively or negatively charged by a situation from the past, it keeps us from moving forward on neutral ground. So that's baggage.
Quick question about that. Why do you call it positive baggage when it's a situation where you were the one who caused the, you know, when I say you're the one who caused, I don't mean it like a, you know, a blame thing. You're wrong. You're wrong. Why would you consider that positive baggage?
Because your feelings about the person are positive. So the baggage is about the emotion.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the emotional baggage. The next one would be timing and distance. And so this is when you meet someone, but they live far away. Like maybe you met them when you were on vacation, or they were on vacation in your city, and you really connect with them, and they're going to be gone in like 3 days. So that's timing and distance, right? Or they live near, but they're always unavailable in some form of the word. Like maybe they work a lot or something like that. So the timing is just off. And then you have compatibility blocks. And so this is our ability to quantify exactly what we need from a partner in order to be happy, and also to qualify whether or not the person in front of us can meet those needs. Lots of people, I would say the majority of people, have an issue around this because they don't often know what they need. People know what they want, they know what their preferences are, but they often use their preferences as barriers to connection with someone who could actually meet their need. And then
oh my God, yes. Getting excited, sorry.
And then the fourth is confidence blocks. And so this isn't just like your confidence in yourself, your self-esteem, but this is also your confidence in your ability to navigate the dating process, reach commitment, and keep a relationship going. So every single person, I've literally met no one who didn't have a challenge around confidence when it comes to dating. So those are the 4 blocks. And specifically with gay men, the real issue is about culture. So when you grow up in a place that historically has not validated your identity, right, and has relegated who you are to a decision that you can make rather than to a part of you that is integral to your nature, right? Like it's the difference between someone choosing to be a specific race or nationality versus someone choosing what to have for dinner. Like we often put sexuality in the dinner category as if you choose who you're attracted to.
Crazy.
So
crazy.
When you grow up in a world where people are always telling you who you are is wrong and that it isn't natural or it isn't valuable, like it's hard to not internalize that. It's really, really hard to invalidate a cultural system that you're born into where the only thing that's different seems to be you, right? That means you now have an additional layer to work through in terms of the confidence piece, the self-acceptance piece, the self-worth piece. Because if you don't believe you are worthy enough for the people who are supposed to love you, with just like your family, those you grew up with, if you're not worthy enough for their love, it's hard to convince yourself that you're worthy enough of love from someone who's a stranger initially, right? So that's a big part of it. The second part of this is, since culture has historically been a dangerous place to exist as an LGBT person, lots of people have to either meet online or at a secret gay club or something like this. And I call this the digital closet. Like being online is a digital closet, and the only thing you have space for in a closet, whether digital or analog, is sex. And so often gay relationships start from a sexual place because that is the only space people have to really meet. Like you don't get to really meet people in the grocery store or, at some random regular place like that because it's not safe to be yourself.
It's not safe. Yeah. You literally are risking your safety if you are in some places, if you are,
absolutely
making an advance to somebody who,
Yeah, this is why people don't come out. Like the only reason you won't be honest about who you are, and side note, this is also the reason you won't be honest, period. So if you lied about anything or someone lies to you about anything, it all comes back to this. The reason we lie is because we don't feel safe to own our truth, right? And so if you ever encounter someone who isn't truthful with you about something, the question isn't, why did you lie to me? The question is, what can I do to create more safety in our relationship so that lying becomes unnecessary? Right? So that is the bulk of it. It's really about social and cultural acceptance about who you are as a person and being able to work through that. So until we get through that, it's really hard to have successful relationships. And that is one of the major differences working with gay men or lesbians as compared to heterosexual clients.
Well, I love your insight about the digital closet and why it sort of gets relegated to sex a lot of times in homosexual relationships. And that's certainly a stereotype that's like, oh, well, gay people don't want commitment. They want to be free.
Just a stereotype, yes.
Yeah. How did you become so well adjusted? So clearly by the time you were in college, because you said that you were the president of the LGBT, organization at Howard. So did you have a lot of support? Like, when did you come out? What was your journey? Because you just seem like, to me, to be very, you know who you are. You've got this real inner strength and confidence that a lot of people don't have. I don't care what their, sexuality is. So how did that happen? Like, how do we get some of that? How does everybody listening get some of what you got?
Yeah. So this is kind of funny when I process it this way, but as a kid, my mom had me when she was 15. And we lived in the house with my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. And my uncles, they weren't like bullies or anything. But, sometimes older siblings do pick on younger siblings. So they would do something or say something that would make me cry because I was a little kid. And they would say I was a crybaby. Or they knew I was scared of the dark. So they would put me in the room and turn the light off. Stuff like that.
They would literally put you in the closet in the dark.
Yes. So they would do stuff like that. Normal kid stuff. And I hated the fact that I was scared. So I would always try to force myself to do the things that I was scared of so that I wouldn't be scared of them anymore. And I remember even running into my room at night and jumping. And while I was in the air, I would turn off the light and then land in my bed because I was scared there was a monster under my bed or something.
Wow.
Moral of the story. Yeah. I always tried to make
That's
myself
so adorable,
face my
though.
fears.
I bet you were the cutest.
Yes. That's what they tell me. So when I recognized that I was gay, I was 6 when I learned that I was gay. And I actually had a crush on a guy in my class. I was in kindergarten or whatever grade you're in when you're 6. And you know how your parents ask you what did you do at school today? How was the day? And so I was going to tell them about the boy I had a crush on. But I'd never had any context or conversation around what gay meant, what it was, how people felt about it before this day, right? So I didn't know that there would be any reason not to say that to my mom. It just so happened that she was watching Jerry Springer. There was a gay couple, and I remember it said gay lovers on the screen. My mom taught me how to read before I started school. And so I knew what lovers meant, but I didn't know what gay meant yet. And so the guys kissed and the crowd kind of went wild a little bit, in a disapproving way. And my mom didn't say anything because she just asked me that question, but I could tell that her face was not necessarily comfortable with what was happening on the TV. So I just decided to omit that part of the story.
The universe is crazy, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah,
just the
so
timing
crazy.
of this is crazy. Yeah.
Yes. So I just didn't tell her that part of the story. Because I recognize, people don't like that. And if they are gay lovers because they kissed, then clearly if I like this boy in my class, then eventually that means we would kiss because you kiss people you love. With, that's how my mom explained it to me. So I don't want to be that, right? At 6. Then over the next 6 or so years, definitely had that internal struggle of not wanting to be that, but knowing that I was. At 12, I decided I was going to come out to my mom. Because again, I hate being scared of anything. So I'm going to face my fear. So I got up all the courage. I can't believe
6 years.
Yes.
You were so little.
I know. It's crazy to think about now.
It's crazy. You were you made that decision I can't tell her. I got to keep this in. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so
and that I didn't want to be gay. I just didn't. Who would ever want to be something that takes away the love, attention, and affirmation you get from the people you love? Nobody. No one would intentionally choose that, especially not a kid. So don't want to be that.
You're just
so
a
at
baby.
12, right. So I go into my mom's room and I'm like, hey, Mom, I have something to tell you. And she's like, what? I'm gay. Her response was, oh, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, okay. And I left her room. That was it. That was my first coming out story. And
wow.
Clearly she didn't believe me, but I was already, terrified to even say it in the first place. So I crossed it off my list. I did it. I told her, cool. But since she didn't believe me, I knew that I would eventually have to tell her again at some point. And that point came when I was 14. We were going to the grocery store, and my mom and I play a lot. We are really, really goofy. I don't know who started this, but I said, guess what? She says what? And I say something stupid, and then she starts laughing. Then she says, guess what? I say what? She says something stupid, and then I start laughing, right? Then I say it again. She says, what? And I say, I'm bisexual. And so she pulls into the parking lot of the grocery store and she starts to cry. Because she actually believed me then. And of course I started crying too because it's my mom. And she was like, I kind of knew, but I didn't want to say anything to make you upset. But you're always going to be my baby and I love you.
Oh.
So that was the story. But I thought it was funny that she said she kind of knew, considering I actually told her at 12. The way our brains kind of work, we just...
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, the stories that we can tell ourselves are amazing.
Yes. So then 6 months later, I called my mom and I was like, hey, remember that conversation we had a couple months ago? And she was like, yeah. I was like, I'm just gay. So the reason I even told her I was bisexual is because some way, maybe online or something I read, said that if you're bisexual, there's still hope. And so I was trying to ease the conversation, and that's why I told her, but I knew I was just gay. I think coming out that early and then telling my grandma at 14 and her being really religious, and I lived with my grandparents through high school because I wanted to go to the school in their district. Every single day in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I went to high school. Every single day with my grandmother was kind of like a struggle since she was so religious and so against it in terms of her values or whatever. So that really forced me to have to know myself well, right? Because if you're defending yourself, having to assert your individuality every single day for 4 years, like that kind of makes you sure of who you are or who you aren't. By the time I got to college...
how exhausting though, right? Like, that's
so fucking exhausting.
God, it's so unfair that you have to, how much of your emotional and mental bandwidth as a child was taken up by knowing who you are and having to figure out how to navigate that in the world. Yeah. Oh, God.
And then as a high school student, and you're also learning all of the social things, and the whole identity piece really comes into play then.
Were you out at school?
A lot. I mean, not at first. Like, some of my friends knew, right? Like, I started to tell friends when I was in 7th grade. Just a few. I wasn't, like, out where I didn't really care until, like, my junior year. I think that's when I really stopped caring. But again, it was because I had to go through defending myself every day with my grandmother, who also loves me dearly. So it was a very interesting environment to be in, where someone loves you, but you don't feel loved, and then you do feel loved, and then you don't. So it was a really interesting dynamic. But looking back, I'm 31 now. Like, looking back, I am so fucking grateful that I had that experience so early, because now when I got to college, even my freshman year in college, I was out from day one, right? I lived in an all-male dorm. I didn't care. Like, I just had no care in the world if people knew or not, because I'd already dealt with my grandma, and what that meant.
If I can deal with grandma, I'm not worried about nobody else.
Yes, like, nobody. Nothing you can say or do will ever compare to what I had to go through, and grandma and I are good, right? We are totally good now. So I don't care if you like it or not. That's not my problem. Yeah. It just so happened that I had a totally different experience than most people would expect. Like, rather than being shunned or ousted or unaccepted, I was totally embraced. And there were so many friends I had who were straight college students who told me things like, I never thought I would ever have a friend who was gay. But, like, you were totally different than what I expected. And because of that, it allowed me to see things from a totally different perspective. And so just being myself helped other people to change the way they saw people like me. And so it was a very rewarding feedback loop, right? To go through all the things I went through with my grandma, and now in college to be seen as someone who's, like, actually making a difference just by being myself. That's the thing I learned in high school. Like, in order to make a difference, you have to be different, right?
You have to be different. You have to be different, and you have to be true to that. You can't. If you're trying to shrink and hide, I mean, I think about, I just think about being a kid and just all the dumb shit that I wanted to fit in this way, and I wished I was more like this, and I wish I was more like that, and I wished I didn't have the name Francesca, because I used to get made fun of for having that name, and people tell me, like, oh, what kind of name is that for a black girl, and, like, all that kind of stuff. There were so many things that I just wish were different so I could fit in, and now I'm like, thank God. Thank you, universe, for making me different. Thank you for making me, and everybody is different. We're all different. We're all special rainbows. But thank you for making me a person who, despite my desire to fit in, I just couldn't. I just couldn't.
Yes.
I just couldn't conform. I tried. I wanted to. Who I really was just too strong. And even it's funny, my podcast editor just texted me the other day because I was on Survivor, and my first season of Survivor, I was the first person voted out. I went out with a bang. Didn't go out quietly. And then, so they asked me back for a second season, and I went out first again. I was like, I just got to be me. But anyway, it was funny because she's like, wow, she's like, you were so authentically you, she's like, I would have been you. The fact that I just wasn't able to, there were things that I intellectually knew, this is a game for $1 million. I need to just keep my mouth shut. I need to just go along with this. I just need to pretend that this is okay. I need to just act like this person is not a lunatic and just pretend that what they're saying is rational and all these things. And it lasted for half a day. The first day I was out there, I was like, okay, I'm like, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. Shut up, $1 million. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. It's not worth it. Not even for $1 million could I pretend to be someone I'm not. It's just not worth it to me. Anyway, so I'm sorry. That's a bit of a tangent, but
I totally get it. And what you say here really dovetails with that point. You have to be yourself. Being yourself is where peace comes from. Being yourself is where that sense of happiness comes from. That's where your success comes from. The only thing you really have to do, your real purpose in life, is to be yourself. And when you figure that out, everything is just so much easier.
Oh, I love that. It's so very true. Oh God, yes. I think that's why, that's why I was so instantly drawn to you. And I'm always instantly drawn to people who are just, this is who I am. I'm embracing it. That's the most beautiful thing in the world to me. So I thank you for being yourself and being such a positive force in this world, showing people what's possible. The question that I had before about honesty, and this is a bit of a segue, and maybe I misinterpreted what you said, but it was something about if your partner is being dishonest, then it's partially your responsibility to create the safety in the relationship so they can be honest. Is that kind of the gist of what you were saying, or am I misquoting you?
I'm saying it's really a shared experience, right? Whatever we create is what we create. So if there's a reason to not be honest, it's just because we don't feel safe with the truth. And it's not always about fault, right? And I would say rarely it's about fault. It's not your fault that your partner isn't being honest or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, if you recognize that someone isn't being honest, the other thing to have to recognize here is that they feel uncomfortable. That's what this is really about. When we focus on the lies or we focus on the dishonesty, we're actually missing the opportunity to transform things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. I guess I do see that in, maybe in an honesty of expressing your feelings, people who, for instance, don't feel like they can say to their partner, I felt, that hurt my feelings, or I didn't feel seen, or I don't feel appreciated, or I feel, you don't care about what is important to me. Those types of things, I think those things are really easy to be dishonest about.
And I didn't mean when someone is intentionally deceptive to try to manipulate you. No.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that's not not what you really meant, because I was like, there's no way I just know that's not what you mean.
No.
But I did want to clarify it, because that's obviously a big issue for a lot of people. Yeah. Here's a question: do you have any people approaching you who are still in the closet, who are coming to you not just for help with dating, but help with coming out and learning how to date authentically?
Yeah, that has happened. So often it's people who are on the cusp of that. So either they are ready to come out, but they don't know how, or they just came out and now need to figure out how to navigate the new reality of what life is like. But what I would say, anyone who wants to be in a relationship, I'll just go ahead and say it. It's much harder. Like I said earlier, the only thing that there's room enough for in a closet is sex. Like, love needs much more room to grow and evolve. It needs that freedom. And so it's almost impossible. Not impossible, but almost impossible to have a relationship if you're not out. It creates so many more problems that are unnecessary for the relationship because we can't be authentic with each other. And so it's essentially we have to create a lie, and then the mental and emotional energy it takes to keep that up is a whole nother level of draining.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. So what is your sort of quick, this is not the easiest question, but modern dating, I mean, and you talk about this, I talk about this, all of us who are coaches, and we talk about acknowledging the realities of the difficulty of modern dating, right? Like, we truly are in a dating crisis. I think it's going to get better, because it has to get better, because everyone's frustrated. But I also think that, like, there are certain things that people can do right now to start to navigate this modern dating culture easier and have success with it. So what's your sort of basic kind of go-to advice for people who are like, I don't even know, like, how do you even meet people? Like, does everything have to be online? Like, how do you start? What's your advice for people on that front?
Okay, so
I know it's a hard question.
Here's what it comes down to. Like, at the base, my number one piece of advice is to review your needs and desires and own what you actually need. What I see happens a lot, and what's even happened to me a lot in dating situations in the past, is we want something, but we don't necessarily think that it's that important, right? Because we don't recognize that it's actually a need and not just a desire. So, right. For example, I know that I need someone who values personal growth and self-development just as much as I do, right? Yes. And so what that might look like is you for sure had some sort of like spiritual awakening. Maybe you meditate often, or you do yoga or something like that. Like, you're involved in some sort of like greater spirituality that provides you with self-awareness and groundedness, right? That's something that I know that I need, but I didn't know that I needed my partner to also be at that same level. So in the past, like, I'd gotten involved with people who maybe were curious but didn't really rock with it that much, right? Or were just like, what? Like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. And so we found other ways to relate, but because I wasn't totally grounded in the fact that I needed that, I didn't use that as a way to screen people. Right. And so ultimately, what I'm saying is your values are the most important component of long-term compatibility.
Yes.
And until you own what your values are, and unless you screen people and weigh people based on whether or not your values are compatible, you're setting yourself up for failure later. Because even if you get along with someone, like, I've never dated anybody that I didn't really get along with. Maybe once. But otherwise, I've never dated anybody that I didn't really get along with, right? But ultimately, the reason that any relationship ends is because we don't have those compatible values. So you have to be honest with yourself about what really matters to you, and only invest in people who have that common ground, because that will save you hours, days, weeks, months, years, lifetime of heartache. Yep. Oh my God. So that is the most important. Like, get clear on what your needs and desires are before anything else. Because again, if you can quantify what they are, it's so much easier to qualify whether or not someone can meet them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you don't know what you're looking for, it's real hard to find it.
Yep, you won't know if it's right in front of you. You'll let in the wrong people, and you'll weed out the right people just because you don't know what you want. And what that means is you're actually wasting everybody else's time because you don't know what you want.
That's so true. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and I think that people are kind of resistant to that message a lot because, I mean, some of the resistance that I hear, at least initially, when we get deeper into it, then people get it. But some of the initial resistance is like, well, I'm attracted to who I'm attracted to. So I'm not going to, date somebody, just because we have the same values if I'm not attracted to them. So they're always starting with, I need to be instantly attracted to the person, and then I'll see if all the other things fall into place. And, what I'm always like preaching to people, I was like, listen, when you do this work on yourself and you go deeper and you start to get really clear on what's important to you, who you are attracted to changes. If you are attracted to people who don't value you, if you're attracted to people who don't want commitment and you do want commitment, if you're in that rut of being instantly attracted to a negative dating pattern or just something that you just don't want, then you got to work on yourself so that you can be attracted to a different kind of person so you can actually find the love that you're looking for.
Yeah, I call it calibrating your love compass, right? We all are attracted to certain things, but it's based on our conditioning. In many cases, like, it's one thing to say this person is cute or whatever, like that type of attraction, but it's something totally different to be attracted to an energy that doesn't serve us. And so you can recognize if your compass is pointing you in the right direction or not based on the type of people you date and how similar they are, because people are often attracted to the same types, and if your type never works out, you have to reset your love compass. There's something wrong here, right? And so what it means is you've gotten used to some sort, I'll say it in a different way. Have you ever heard of trauma bonding?
Yes, I have.
It's essentially like, when we go through some shit and then we bond with people because they've also been through similar shit. When you've done that over and over, your compass gets really good at recognizing that. And so often when you feel that sense of attraction or that tingling, it's your familiar senses that are tingling, not your this is the right person for me senses.
It's not your inner wisdom. It's not your inner wisdom. It's your trauma.
It's just pattern.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. If your chemistry radar is leading you astray, you got to fix the radar.
Yep.
Right? Like, you don't just keep going after the same dynamic and the same person over and over again. So wise. I love it.
And what's interesting is about values, our values and our missions form the foundation of our lifestyle, right? And when we think about like opposites attract, we're usually not talking about personality. We're usually talking about lifestyles. And this is the whole like good girl, bad boy dynamic, right? Like, if you're always attracted to bad boys but you're not a bad boy or not a bad girl or whatever, this is what that looks like. We are fascinated by what is new and different. And so if we always go after people who are trouble, that sense of intense attraction, especially like sexual attraction, is because it's a unique experience where we won't feel safe. We're attracted to the danger. We're attracted to the novelty. And so once you recognize that, when you see for a fact that, oh, this is like me saying, I want to get on someone who's going to hang me over a cliff every day. Like, you get to decide then if that's the type of life you want to live. You want to be over a cliff every single day or not? Because if so, keep doing what you're doing, because it will give you that. You will have the up and down the roller coaster for sure. But someone who shares your values, you can still be excited about, but you won't feel that danger. And that is the difference. You have to get in touch with your feelings around, is this curiosity and excitement and playfulness that will lead to safety, or is this danger?
Interesting. I like that. I like that way of framing it. Yeah, it's like, I think for me, the moment where obviously I knew, I understood patterns, I understood my own patterns, but the thing that really made me understand how deep our unconscious genius is in terms of like that radar to be like, I feel so drawn to this person. It's so magical, but it's like, oh no, you're just drawn to the same shit all over and over again, but you're drawn to the danger. But I realized this because I talked to this woman and she wasn't a client, but she was telling me about her relationship history, and she had been in 3 serious relationships. One was a marriage, and all 3 cases, and she met them in different ways. She went to college with one of them. She met one of them at church. She met one of them online. And in all 3 cases, all of her partners had not only cheated on her, but become secretly engaged to another woman.
Wow.
And I was like, and when she told me that, I was like, okay, if somebody said, I'm going to give you $1 billion if you can find 3 men to like get secretly engaged behind your back, I could not do that. I was like, that's beyond lottery. That's beyond that was the experience of talking to her, was the one that really drove home to me. Like, no, we have a pattern, and our patterns are deep. And if you don't understand what's going on there, you are going to find yourself in the same situation over and over and over again. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it's kind of amazing how powerful we are.
Yeah, the way I describe it, I say you take yourself with you wherever you go. And so
That's
until
so
you change, nothing else changes. It doesn't matter where you go. Things will keep repeating the pattern, because if you think of yourself like a computer, for example, you're running a program and everything will always run in according to what that program is. You cannot live a life outside of your mindset. So if you have certain things that are consistently a part of your program, the only way to change what you experience is to change the program, which is why therapy, coaching, and counseling are all useful, because they help you change the program.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Okay, I have 2 more questions for you. And the first one is, if you had a megaphone that was loud enough for all of the world to hear, what message would you send out about love?
You have the power of the universe coursing through your veins. And when you let yourself remember that, love is automatic, because that power is love.
Yes. Oh, God, that's so good. I love that. I love that. Amazing. And the last question I have for you, and I'm going to link to all of your social media and to your book, to your website in the show notes. But additionally, is there anything that you want people to know that you're working on, how people can reach you, who you want to reach out to you? Tell the audience how they can connect with you.
Sure. So the easiest way to connect with me is on Instagram, and that's at Prince Amari. Amari is Amari. And then anybody who's listening to this,
Amari
you can
means
for
love.
sure. Yes, it means love. If you're listening to this, you can get a free copy of my book by going to the link that will be in the show notes, and that's lastingloveatlast.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amari. It's been so good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world. It's so needed, and I'm just very grateful for you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I can't wait to do this again. So much fun.
Yes,
And
I know.
Yeah, totally kindred spirits.
Totally. And I can't wait to do it in person. Like, wait, you got to come to LA. I got to come to DC. We got to hang out. We got to hang out. Okay,
it's happening.
Perfect.
We're going to stop this recording, and then we're going to plan out the trip. How about that?
Okay. All right. Let's do that. So we're going to go now. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We got plans to make.
Adios. Thanks for listening.
There you have it, folks. And indeed, Amari and I did stay on the line, and we made lots of plans. We were on the phone for like an hour. He introduced me to human design. It's amazing. So be sure to check the show notes for links to Amari's social media, Prince Amari on Instagram, and there'll be links to that and to his book. And remember, you can go to that website and download a free copy of his book. So do that. And please stay in touch with me. You can follow me on Instagram and all social media at dearfranny. And you can also follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Dear Franny Podcast. Thank you to those of you who are listening all around the world. It makes me so happy and grateful and excited to see that you guys are listening and appreciating the show. If you haven't already, please take the time to rate this podcast wherever you get it. And, you know, I could use a few more reviews on iTunes. I'm not going to lie. I'd appreciate it. But for those of you who have taken the time to rate and review the podcast, thank you so very much. It's kind of the only way that I know that you guys are enjoying the show. And anyway, I appreciate it a lot. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for listening. Wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful day or night, and I will talk to you next time. Goodbye.